I don't know why it's crooked. Like, I feel like it should be straighter. I don't know. It doesn't really. Okay, well, it's Friday of another week. I believe it's, oh my goodness, I don't even know. Is it week 10? Week 11? It's pretty close. It's in the ballpark somewhere. I'm in the echoey room again. And today I'm going to try to wrap up at least the different kinds, maybe not the analysis, but at least different kinds of strategic alliances that you might use in order to go and to enter another market, an international market. I want to make a few points first of definitional points. A strategic alliance is what this chapter is called, and generally speaking, okay, if you throw the words as their natural meaning, strategic means you have some kind of goal and a method towards reaching it. And then you have alliance. Alliance is similar to partnership. So it means that you set your goals in the same direction as someone else. In that definition, it really includes all of the different relationships that you have, whether it's hiring Amazon to be your distributor or using their services to distribute your products, hiring some advertising agency to help do market research for your product in a new market. Those are alliances. A partnership with another company to open a new business, to acquire a company. That's more of, it's not an alliance between two companies, but it's a relationship between them that has a goal. So you might see the term strategic alliances used in two ways. One, in a very general way, for all the different relationships that companies can have with one another. And the other one is specific to, I guess the term would be functional, a functional alliance, meaning that one of the functions of the business would be allied. Like, it's like when we do outsourcing, right? We just take one part of the business, and whether it's marketing or operations or manufacturing, or even legal and accounting, whatever it is, you have some kind of an alliance in that particular part of the business, that particular function. And we're going to talk about, well, you remember that from last year, right? We had organizational structures. So each company has their expertise in general, and what you're trying to do is to maximize your focus. You're trying to focus on the things that you're really good at and find other people who are good at other things to let them work on that for you in terms of outsourcing or some kind of alliance, or using their expertise, maybe even their technological expertise. So sometimes you'll hear strategic alliance referred to in the same way as a functional alliance. So just be a little bit careful about terms. Figure out which one they're talking about. Are they talking about in general, all the relationships between businesses, or are they talking about functional alliances? Yesterday, tried to compare acquisitions and mergers, the biggest difference being that an acquisition ends up being one company that maintains its name, that takes over another company that disappears. That company will usually facilitate growth, and the growth will either happen because of some form of horizontal integration, meaning market share is increased, or vertical integration, which means that some part of the supply chain is being added on to the main company. The benefits of these kinds of acquisitions and mergers are usually called synergy, meaning that the companies should do better than they would do if they stayed apart. A merger ends up creating one company too, but the one company is existing and no company disappears. The two companies become one. Both acquisitions and mergers will probably create an extra group of personnel who do similar jobs, and so therefore will have to be cut down and probably save money from that. Most likely they'll have two marketing departments, and if you tried to keep two marketing departments going at the same time like Nokia did, you would find that there would be some big battles between the strategies of those. You don't need to have two accounting departments. You don't probably need to have extra shops that are all next to each other with different brands on them. So the goal of the merger is to streamline and cut all the costs and get bigger and grow market share. So besides the vertical and horizontal mergers, there's another one called a conglomerate merger. Conglomerate is just businesses that are generally connected that don't necessarily have any natural relationship that they should have towards them. They can just start, maybe a distribution network is the only link between them. So you have those companies like Unilever who have probably, I don't know, hundreds of products, and those products are all different kinds, but most of them you would see them distributed to supermarkets. So that's the thing that links them together. They're not experts in shampoo versus toothpaste versus breakfast cereal, but they are good at distributing, so it benefits them to be able to basically vertically integrate their brands into their distribution chain. So, I'm on page 47, you should have your book. A company may want to branch out into a different industry or market. The plan is to achieve this with lower risk by buying an established company. A company can maintain profits over seasonal and economic highs and lows because they own businesses in a range of industries. So that's what's leading me to this graphic here. This video is not good. It's not a good video. It's a boring video, and the voice is very weak. But this is a good list of reasons why people do mergers and acquisitions. So I would take notes on this. I'm going to go through this for a second. So that's what we just read. Number one, having a diversified portfolio of brands allows companies to spread risk over different countries and different regions, and different economic areas are doing well and some are doing poorly at the same time, but they can be balanced out. So this reduced exposure to economic risk. If you have more things to sell, then some things aren't selling, that's okay, because other things are. Some countries may be experiencing booms, like Vietnam, while others are having recessions, which is going to be the rest of the world for the next 10 years. Another reason why people would do a merger or acquisition follows from what we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. Entering new markets or trying to get into a trade block, which is what I also mentioned yesterday. So a new market allows you to, so if the Mondelez group buys Kindo, they have access to the Vietnamese market, but they also have access to the ASEAN. So if you're let's say you are a Vietnamese business and you bought some kind of smaller subsidiary in Czech Republic or Austria, then you would be able to do business throughout the entire European Union. big benefit, right? Many Japanese car manufacturers set up production within the EU, so these products do not have to pay tariffs within the EU. Since the Japanese company provides jobs in the EU is very happy for them to be there and allows them to miss the tariffs. Acquiring national, international brand names and patents. So this is also conglomerates, also these big conglomerates, they just want to have brand names on brand names just to get bigger for size sake. But beyond that, and there's a lot of intellectual property involved. For example, Disney buys Pixar, and so now they have all of that brand, and they also have all of those copyrights for Pixar's movies for the next 70 years. And that's also true for pharmaceutical companies who are trying to buy patents. They're looking for new medicines, so they buy smaller companies that make discoveries, and then they get to control the patents. When you buy a company, you can control the intellectual property. Their example here is that BMW company, a famous German automaker. They acquired Mini, and then used the brand to sell Minis across other countries because it was already known. So, if you were going to make 10 different kinds of weird cookies, but you didn't, you started off with, Mr. Cookie is your name. Okay, it might take you 10 years to make your name, but what about if you just bought a company like Oreo or something that was already known in one country, and then you were able to diversify and make different products based on the Oreo brand? And that's similar to what they did. People knew the Mini, and then BMW redesigned it and then started to sell it as I guess a relatively budget vehicle for in different markets. This is vertical integration, right? Vertical integration. Securing resources and supplies. So if I want to, this example is, a gas company, British Petroleum. They got together with another Russian company called Rosneft. So they had access to the Arctic in order to drill for oil in the Arctic Circle. And so this partnership allowed them to find more resources or more oil in different areas that they did not have access to. That's an extreme example. But that goes for, let's say, if Starbucks decided to buy some coffee farms in central Vietnam in the highlands because they wanted to make sure they had a steady supply, that they could quality control at a good price. So that's another reason why they would buy that company or acquire those farms. Or milk. I think they have their own milk brand now. I think part of Starbucks' problem early on is they had some supplier problems with milk. They couldn't get a consistent supplier, and now they have this brand that they created, I think, but they're calling it barista milk, but what they did, I believe, is they found a farm that they could buy, and then they branded it, which is a good name for milk, right? Barista milk. Sell it everywhere. Dutch Lady is another example of number 3. They just made up a brand that sounded international, bought the company, and then acted like it was an imported brand. But they also bought their own farms, so they were able to secure a supplier. So that could be, you could buy your own trucking company, you could buy your own distributor. Maintaining increasing global competitiveness. I'll just say that there is a trend towards companies getting bigger and bigger. Multinational companies have been growing and acquiring each other in a mad rush for the last 15 years, maybe 20. And whether it's tech businesses, food industry, pretty much everything. And if you want to compete, basically you're competing with these big players. The challenge is to keep up with them. We all know what EOS means at the end of that, right? EOS means economies of scale. I'm going to turn the light off so you can use this to take notes for a couple minutes in case the glare of the light is too strong. And you can do that while I'm talking about the next thing, which is joint ventures. I'm on page 47. Now, there's a lot of risk involved when you buy a company. There's the risk, the financial risk. There's the risk that it might not achieve its goals of what you hoped it would be able to achieve. There's the risk that it's difficult to manage a company in a different country that has a different culture. Culture is a huge problem. And, of course, there's a risk from your shareholders that they're unhappy with the results. So if this merger or acquisition that you achieve does not provide the benefits to your owners, shareholders, that you expected, they might start to challenge you, whether you're the board of directors, or sell their shares, or lose some of their belief in the company. So another pressure that can come from this kind of merger or acquisition, is that it won't create profit fast enough for the shareholders to be patient. So, as a result of that, the company could suffer losses of capital, and that could lead to bigger liquidity problems, and it could actually destroy. I mean, there's many companies that have made acquisitions that have actually killed the company. So there's a risk involved. You're risking, that it's poison, right? You might have you might think you're eating something good and get poisoned by it. So what happens in some cases is, and so that means that the decision making of those acquisitions and mergers usually has to be fairly conservative. You have to really have a set goal, especially in a merger, because if you fail, then you're risking your company. So what the choice is for companies to do who want to have a partnership, but they don't want to buy each other, they don't want to be the big fish eating the little fish, they don't want to get married into a merger, is that they both can take some of their resources, capital, intellectual property maybe, labor, expertise, technological capital, and they can join them together with another company separate and make a third company. So we had the big fish eats the little fish, we had two companies become one with a new name, and now we have two companies who have a baby, and their baby is called a joint venture. So the joint venture has some upside, because usually the joint venture has a focus. There's a reason for it to exist. This kind of structural arrangement allows for more risk. And the reason is because the capital invested in the business is a limited liability company. So that means if the ambitious idea that's in the joint venture is able to be successful, you can try more. And If it's successful, then it can grow and the profits can be shared like any other venture. But if it fails, you only lose the assets both of the parent companies only lose the assets that they invested in that joint venture. It doesn't hurt the parent company. So that's the goal, right? Is to protect the parents by investing into have a limited investment into the child company, the joint venture. So, first of all, it allows for greater risk because it's got less, it's not going to be deadly to the main companies if it fails. The shareholders, if they're not given some choice to buy shares in the joint venture, may be a little unhappy with the loss of resources that the company is giving up. But it really can play to the strengths of the expertise of the companies involved. For example, we have a subway that we're building here is a joint venture between the construction company from Vietnam and a Japanese engineering company who has experience, I think, making these subways. So they bring their experience, technical expertise, and the Vietnamese company has their relationships and, of course, their labor power and their ability to influence the decision makers because they're local. So that sounds like a good joint venture. A lot of public projects like a subway will end up being joint ventures. One reason is because they often go over budget, like the subway. And so in that case, it's better to not have the parent companies involved. So, but joint ventures can work in many ways. Like two airlines might see some potential in a certain route or a service that didn't previously exist and decide that they don't want to risk. There's some risk involved, but it seems like it could be a good opportunity, so they might put money into it without risking it and make another airline with another name. So, Jetstar Asia, for example, they might, instead of Asia, what is it, Air Asia and Jetstar, they'll put themselves together and make a joint venture. All right, I'm on page 47. A joint venture is a type of alliance or a business starts up an independent company, a baby. The company is formed using the resources from the alliance partners, and each partner owns a percentage of the joint venture company. The venture partners usually form a new company for the joint venture. You have to, actually. That way, the company can focus on the joint venture project, and individual partners can still focus on their core business activities. So the people who are assigned to the joint venture inside the parent companies are focused on the project, whereas the main business can continue to focus on what it needs to focus on. So, I mean, sure, there can be some, it doesn't always work out perfectly. There can be some push and pull between the joint venture and the focus of the company, that's for sure. But the idea is that you're able to have everybody focused on whichever project they're working on. It is a good idea to form a joint venture, I'm on 48, with a partner that is a local business in the target country. The local partner will have the knowledge, here we go about the subway, the knowledge of the culture, maybe the consumer preferences, the network. They will also have a working knowledge of laws and regulation, this should be highlighted, established distribution networks, how to deal with them, and experience working with the local media and also banks. So lots of good things can come out of the local partner. Joint ventures do, though, they fail sometimes because there's resistance to change and poor communication. Although, people, okay, so if one company acquires another company, or two companies merge, you do have a lot of resistance to change because the employees might have been taken by surprise. They might not have recognized that all of a sudden their jobs are going to be competing with the same department in another part of the same company. They thought they existed alone, and now they're only one of two marketing departments in the same company. So that can create a lot of tension. Who's going to survive? Everybody knows some people are going to get cut. But a joint venture, I think, is less resistant to this. You know, the change is it's built in. A joint venture is necessarily, by definition, a new project. And people who are involved in it should be excited. And of course, there can be communication problems between cultures. But everybody who goes into it recognizes the benefits that are supposed to come from the cultural mix and the financial elements and technological elements of the company. This company is getting started, so the structures of, you know, all these communication, decision-making structures are being put in place in real time. They're not trying to fit already structures that are already in place and then trying to jam them together. I mean, sure, there's going to be cultural differences, but you are creating a new business. People should be open to that, I believe. Employees of all joint venture partners must be committed to making the arrangement work. Of course you would. They must understand the difficulties of the joint venture, but also what they have to gain from it. And that's, you know, because you're starting something new, you have a clear goal, right? Much more clear than like, okay, we're just going to merge these two companies together to try to get more market share. And everybody's like, well, what does that mean? How much market share? Sharing is vital. They're giving advice of sharing is vital. Joint ventures also fail when employees continue to see joint venture partners as a threat or as competition. That's about management of people, right? All employees and businesses must exchange knowledge and expertise and establish good working relationships, both formally and informally. Meetings, committees, joint business, social events, swapping employees who switch to the other part of the joint venture, the other company involved to get experience. Teams made up of people from all the partner businesses and internal promotions of the project will build a single vision and commitment to success. Okay, so that's about management. Management has to manage the expectations and also the goals of the customers and not the customers, the goals of the project, sorry. A joint venture has a better chance to survive, and if it fails, it has less risk for the company. So again, I have another video which is bad. It's a bad video, but it's got a nice list of things in it. It's got a nice. Advantages and disadvantages of joint ventures. I don't know why 12, it's too many. Both sides have some kind of expertise. You wouldn't get involved into a joint venture unless you knew somebody was bringing something new to the table. In the case of my school, I was the academic expertise, and my partner had the real estate and accounting experience. Two companies coming together on a project obviously have more financial resources to share. A joint venture, if it's a project like the subway, it has a completion date. So they can be temporary relationships, and so therefore the long-term commitment is low. Although, if you're building something that's going to be ongoing, that might not be a bad thing too. Let's say you get involved in kind of building some kind of, two tech companies get involved in building some kind of drone airplanes or something, and they need to do a 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and they maintain their relationships. But it can be temporary. Profits and risks are shared. Profits shared, that's okay. I mean, sure, because you're sharing the risk, you should share the profits. limited lifespan and business exposure. That's why there's not 12, okay? This is repeating itself already. Limited lifespan means temporary and business exposure means less risk. It's repeating. There are ways to exit a joint venture. It's in the contract, right? Every contract has to have a way to terminate the contract. Assets can be sold. So apparently, yeah, I mean, relatively minor benefit. Joint ventures have an increased success rate over mergers and acquisitions, for example. Of course, relationships and trust can be built or broken. They're repeating themselves, repeating themselves, repeating themselves. Now, they're trying to say this is disadvantages, unclear objectives. I'm going to disagree with that. I think that most joint ventures actually have a much higher degree of clarity in terms of what their goal is. I mean, because, okay, you could maybe, it's imaginable, make a joint venture about two pharmaceutical companies can get together and say we want to solve the problem of dengue fever in Southeast Asia, and they send their researchers into a joint venture, and they're not sure about how they're gonna, the medication that they're gonna create when they start the R&D joint venture, research and development. I still think it's quite clear what they're trying to do. If the two companies are getting together to make a subway, it couldn't be more clear what the goal is. The goal is to finish the subway to the point that's in the contract. So I disagree. It would be very weird for two companies to say, hey, let's have another company together and not know what our objective is. I think that is not necessarily a disadvantage. I disagree with that. Not always flexible. Well, they have more flexibility than the main companies because they are new and they get to establish their own rules and customs and culture within that business from the beginning. So I think they can be more flexible. Each company not equally involved. That could be a result of time, but it also could be a part of the design of the joint venture. That some parts of the operation are run by one company rather than another, so I don't think that's a disadvantage. Necessarily. Unbalanced expertise, assets, and investments. If you evaluate your partner well, you should know what they do well. Now, it's fully possible that you get into a bad relationship and you didn't realize that you bring more to the table than your partner. Whose fault is that? Is that the fault of the joint venture? Is that a defect of joint ventures? No, that's a poorly researched joint venture. So I don't find this is I'm not saying there aren't disadvantages, but most of the disadvantages happen because of managerial failure rather than by the design of the joint venture itself. Why does she need 12? Culture battles of joint venture partners. You have to expect it. You have to manage it again. You have to understand that it's going to happen. So you're not surprised by it. Oh my God, the cultures are so different. Duh. So you have to prepare for that. That's about preparation again. Restricted outside activities. So here she's saying that it's not clearly focused, unclear objectives. And then here she's saying that, wait, it's too focused and they cannot do other things other than their goal. They can't both be disadvantages. Lack of proper research and planning. Management, spell management again. Harder to exit when contracts are involved. Maybe, but the point of it is that you know, they could still sell shares to another company if they wanted to. They could sell out if they wanted to. What is this? The temptation for what? Another lover? You know, like to leave. What is this? Yeah, okay. We're gonna make a subway, but now I'm bored, and now I want to go make another. I want to make a SkyTrain somewhere else. I mean, it's ridiculous. These are not really disadvantages. So that's why I'm not gonna upload that video. You can just take the ideas for what they are, but it's they're not. Again, most of the disadvantages are caused by the lack of planning and foresight. They're not really caused by the structure of a joint venture. Okay, so franchising is another way. So on the scale, we have our scale. Selling through Amazon, hiring a distributor to work for you in the new market, buying a local company, acquisition. Mergers are for big companies, very rarely would you merge with a company from another country. It's just very difficult to manage. Investment in the country itself, make your own shops, make your own factories, put for foreign direct investment into that market. That's the highest risk strategy, but the highest reward. Franchising is on this side. Franchising is in between acquisition of a local company and in between hiring a local agent or a distributor. Franchising allows you to enter the market with a partnership. Of course, you know what a franchise is. But, so I'll just quickly go. You know what a franchise is, right? You know what the upside is, that, you know, the risk is spread. So if your risk is spread, then there's less reward for you, but there's also a greater chance of success as well. If you're unsure about that market, if you're really unsure, franchising could be the best way to get your foot in the door. After that, you could change your strategy and start to open your own branches and own them yourself. So you could start by franchising and then own some of your own shops. The International, page 48, the International Franchise Association defines franchising as a continuing relationship in which the franchisor, that's the brand owner, provides a licensed, which you would also do if you were going to find a distributor, a licensed privilege to do business, plus assistance in organizing, training, merchandising, marketing, and management in return for consideration from the franchise. So in contracts, consideration, the exchange of some percentage of sales from that franchise. Other aspects that are included in a franchise business model include, this is what the parent, or the, I don't know, it's more like, so the brand owner, the franchisor, presents is products and services, of course. They want to make sure quality control is good, as in the last bullet point. Trademarks, intellectual property, the concept of the business, what's understandable from the marketing campaign. I think that saves some trouble from the franchisee. And also they know what's expected of them. Marketing strategies, advertising spending and plans, their international brand image, operational standards and systems. So you don't have to think very hard about how to set it up or run it. The minimum standards are set. So if you're going to make a KFC, you need to have a building of this size, and it has to be able to accommodate certain elements for the city, hygiene, capacity, how many customers can fit in the restaurant minimum. operational standards and systems, of course training staff, and quality control, which is number one for the brand's image, maintaining the brand's image. The franchisor is able to expand into global markets without having to invest their own capital. Small risk. The franchisee gains through access to an established, proven business model. You can take that to the business model canvas. And the brand awareness, which makes it a lower risk business venture for them. So it's lower risk for both sides. International franchises are more difficult to manage, slightly, and ensure standards are maintained because of course, obvious reasons, like they're in another country. Perhaps there's a question of language when you're dealing with local management. And of course, laws and regulations. But companies that have experience moving to one or two countries should be able to overcome those. A company may form a relationship with a master franchisee in a country or region. So there are choices. You could try to maintain relationships with many franchisees from your home country, which would increase the risk of quality control problem. But it would also maybe allow you to build your own, if you see things are going well, is to establish your own shops in the network in that country and to have more ownership and profit. Alternatively, you may form a relationship with a master franchisee. In other words, you license them to that country, and so they actually do have some market power in the contract, and so you would have to work out with them if you were able to open your own stores because they would have a right to that territory or region. The master franchisee does act on behalf of the franchisor to set up and fund new franchises. This can be more successful than the franchisor trying to manage new franchises from its home country. The master franchisee is located in the target country with the knowledge in the local language, culture, business environment, plus already probably having a few successful shops. The benefit for the franchisor is increased global market access and global brand awareness at a lower cost than if they did the fully operated investment, a full FDI, and have to hire staff in the new country. So they just get franchise fees and royalties though. Those are the main things that the main customer, the main franchisor would get. So you can see how the risk is distributed. You can see why it would be an attractive model for fast food restaurants and mostly services. It's not necessarily a product strategy. So products in the same level would be licensing arrangements. I had a product that I wanted to sell here. It had this like karaoke microphone with these like auto-tune effects. It was a cool product. The company was so weak. It was from New York, the company. And they were so weak I couldn't even get someone to really think clearly about it. It would have blown up. It would have been great for this market. I could still sell a bunch of them today if I could figure out how to get this cut. But they didn't even produce enough of them. They were not ambitious enough. So I would have liked to have been their licensed distributor for maybe the region, but in at least Vietnam. That was my goal. I was going to bring 100, ship 100 of them over here and sell them in 2 weeks and say, hey, look, I can do this. And they couldn't even get their factory to produce that many. So it didn't work, but that's what I wanted to do. So with a product, you would have like a licensed agent, officially licensed agent, and with a service, you would use a franchise system. Similar risk. All right, so then we have a terrible graphic there. It's very disturbing. Two heads with a gear in between it. I'm on page 49. I think I should try to wrap this up today. So we will be moving on from strategic alliances. Yeah, I think I should do that. So, I'm on page 49. An alliance is worthwhile if it benefits all partners. Synergy. Each partner must be able to identify how they will benefit from the alliance. Research. Management should ask the following questions when considering an alliance. Page 50. What is the benefit to the business that will be involved? So if you look at the business model canvas and you look at your marketing mix, you can get a feeling about what you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to achieve some partnership that gives you an advantage in distribution, some technological advantage? What are you trying to do? So obviously research that. Will customers be accepting of the new venture? That depends on how much risk you're involved. So if it's something that you know for sure will sell, because mobile phones sell in every country, you can be sure that they will sell in country X, then you might want to go and take, there's less risk involved and more investment. But if you're not sure that the customers may be interested, you may want to use a low-risk strategy. Are staff able to work with the staff of the other businesses? We're going to talk about this next semester, about cultural differences in managing them. Is there a rivalry that could cause conflict? So companies also have pride, staffs have pride, and so they might think, why should, how can they know better than we do? And there may be some conflict, but that's again preparation. Is the management of the potential partners adequately committed, experienced, and skilled? So if you have a new project in a new market, you might ask those questions. If I'm really into an idea and my partner's only halfway committed, that may be a problem. Do they have the experienced management to actually achieve the goals that were set, that I hope to achieve in that new market? So those are questions. You would ask that question about anything. If you were going to do a strategic alliance in your own country, you would have that same question. Last part. Because a strategic alliance involves complex arrangements and investments, it is very important to plan and negotiate terms of the alliance. Some of the issues that need to be resolved are the goal of the alliance, which could be, like earlier today, that list of things. Documents, the resources to be provided by each partner. So what do we expect? A disclosure of resources available. Setting KPIs that we can follow in we're making a business plan. If you're going to make a joint venture, you're going to have a new business plan for that new joint venture and its new project. If you're going to get a franchisee, you're going to have them submit a business plan so you can compare it to what you expect from them and modify it accordingly. If you have two companies that merge into one company, you need to have a new mission statement. So you also need to have a new business plan. So it's all that planning. And within a business plan, there's always goals set by KPIs. Legally, make sure you understand the detail of the type of alliance that you're trying to form, because you want to control liability. Black hat, Wear a black hat, consider the operating issues that need to be addressed to achieve the results, consider all the things that could go wrong, whether it's manufacturing could be easy, but distribution could be hard. Getting raw materials to the factory in the new country could be hard, even though distribution is easy. Finding staff to replace other staff that are in key positions might be difficult. Being able to get visas for workers to go there and work from overseas might be difficult. Working with supermarkets or retailers might be difficult. They may not understand the product. So you have to think about the different issues that you might have in your operation in the new market, always. And consider the need to protect your company's intellectual property before entering an alliance. That's true. You should, not you should, but a company should be very careful about the intellectual property laws in the target country and be aware, and it's happened many times that a company will move and do a project or some kind of strategic alliance with a company in another country, and then they'll steal their intellectual property, and that would be, that's bad for you because those laws are weaker in that country, and then you lose your competitive advantage. It's a big danger. So I think one example of that, I can remember if I can find the proper, there was a Pizza Hut, they came to Thailand and they had problems or differences between management, or someone decided to take the expertise of Pizza Hut and start Pizza Company, which is basically using all of the expertise and technology to make pizzas, even the ovens. Let's see, what happened? What was the history of this? Pizza Hut versus Pizza Company. Anyway, I think they took some of they were not able to establish in 1980 franchise Pizza Hut brand since its introduction in Thailand. So, yeah, okay, so this is kind of, the Pizza Company is a restaurant chain and international franchise based in Bangkok, with focus on pizza, blah, blah, blah. Established in 1980, the company had operated global restaurants franchise Pizza Hut brand since its introduction in Thailand. And when their agreement was terminated, Pizza Company was established as the company's own brand in 2001. And then they expanded to, now they're in Vietnam, and UAE and different parts of the Middle East. And Pizza Company is the dominant market, has a dominant market share in Thailand. We don't talk about it, but from what I understood, they really did steal some intellectual property from Pizza Hut. As a result of their franchise, they were the franchisee. And so you have to be careful. You have to be careful of your intellectual property, for sure. Let's see, is there anything else today? I don't think so. Maybe I'll go through this for 1 second. So we have this is similar to what we did in continuing financial motives for mergers and acquisition. This is still a great video, it's already uploaded. What is the measure of success? What factors influence success? examples of successful takeovers, Google and YouTube, advertising revenue. So this is, I guess, the thing that might be worth looking at. Taking over other companies, a few problems that could happen. These are not necessarily problems. These are problems, these aren't the managerial type of problems necessarily, but these are related to the idea in the first place. So there is a cost, right? No matter the restructuring cost is going to still be there, even if in the end you save money by having less employees, less redundant shops. There's going to be a disruption to the business for a while. So if you're in a fast-moving market, like Nokia was, and you're slow-moving because you're trying to merge together two groups of staff, then there's a good chance that you might miss the boat on some innovations, or at least some market trends. Paying too much for the takeover, having a sense that the value of what you're doing is going to be great, amazing, it's going to be so much higher than it really is, so that might be an issue. Clash of cultures, obviously we talked about that. Lost customers, I don't know what he means by that. Lost customers necessarily, maybe confused customers. You're trying to build your market, so I don't know how you lose customers. Resistance from target employees and management, which slows the change. Maybe some people feel misunderstood. They feel that, resentful towards the company. Some, believe it or not, some countries are very nationalistic and they don't like the idea of working with another country. Shareholder resistance can happen due to some, risk involved with these kind of takeovers. And management may be having their attention, will definitely for a little bit, have their attention taken away from the core, which can suffer from that. So there are failed takeovers. MySpace, we didn't do anything to improve it. Anyway, that's I think a good place to wrap up. Thank you for your attention today. And like I said before, we're going to start focusing now on test preparation for the next month because we don't have any more research tasks to do.